Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Baron. This is your Brain on Books, and today we're going to be going over what I read in July. And I'm also going to touch briefly on my plans for August, but overall, July was a fantastic reading month. I was able to participate in 2 read-alongs on the Grimoire Discord, got through a lot of pages, and I may have discovered a new favorite author. I don't know, might be too early to tell, but we'll talk about that in a second. So without wasting any more time, let's get into the books. The first one being The Vanished Birds by Simone Jimenez. Now this is a short science fiction novel, somewhat of a pseudo-space opera that follows a woman who is the captain of an interstellar trade ship which travels outside of time to a single planet to secure crops for her home world. Now this book was a compelling, engaging, and mysterious story. I really enjoyed it. And it dealt with a lot of the themes I love in sci-fi, primarily with time travel and time dilation, which opens things up for some emotionally impactful moments, and they're definitely present in this book. Now, I did have some issues with the writing style. This is very exposition heavy, and it reads more so like contemporary fiction with kind of a splash of sci-fi in it, not particularly the brand of sci-fi I enjoy. However, it was still a well-crafted story. Now, in me saying that, this might be a perfect entry point for people into science fiction. I often see folks that are perhaps intimidated by the concepts, the ideas, the scientific terminology, and they stay away from the genre. This is very accessible, a great fast-paced story that I highly recommend. Now, this was recommended to me by Kay from Kay's Hidden Shelf. I want to thank her for the recommendation. This was spot on, so keep them coming. So the next book I read was Perdido Street Station by China Mieville. I did a full spoiler-free review for this already. I'll leave the link for that in the description, so I'll just touch on this briefly. But overall, I thought this book was great. I only gave it 4 stars because there was some issues with the pacing and some kind of disjointed elements in the middle. However, the world building was so vivid and so unique, and I absolutely loved it. And Mieville's writing style itself, his prose, beautiful descriptions. I mean, this is some of the best that I've experienced in fantasy, but maybe it's a disservice just calling it a fantasy novel because this is a real genre blender. There's horror in here. There's a lot of steampunk sci-fi. It kind of does it all. We did this as a read-along on the Grimoire Discord. I want to thank everyone who participated in that, but excellent novel. I think they're going to continue next month with The Scar. The general reception from everybody who read this is they really, really enjoyed it. So if you've been curious about this novel, pick it up. You will not be disappointed. So going on from there, another read-along I participated in was The Orchard Keeper by Cormac McCarthy. Now, if you've been watching the channel, you know this has been the year of McCarthy for me. And I've been trying to get through all of his books, about 1 a month. Now, this was his first published work, and I can definitely tell that. This doesn't seem as fully realized as some of his other more epic and classic books. However, you can see a lot of the foundational ideas of books that come later, like Sutri or No Country for Old Men. But even though it wasn't quite as compelling as those, it was still just a beautiful and enjoyable read. McCarthy's prose and description are unmatched. One of my absolute favorite authors at this point. I can just read this guy talking about somebody mowing their lawn, and I think I'm going to be into it. So I was happy to read his first work, see where this all started from, and next month we're going to be continuing with Outer Dark. Very excited to get to that one. And if you want to join us, jump on the Discord. We'd be happy to have you. So next book I picked up was Summer of Night by Dan Simmons. This book I've wanted to read for a very long time, and I may do a full review for this. I think there's a lot here for me to talk about, but all in all, this was awesome. But it's one of my favorite subgenres of horror fiction, which is kind of the supernatural coming of age story. You can think of books like It, Something Wicked This Way Comes, Boy's Life. This is right in that category, and I think it was fantastic. Now, it's very similar to It, where you're following a group of young children on summer vacation, trying to fight some supernatural entity, all stuff that we're familiar with, but it was well crafted. I think Simmons' work was awesome, and this was somewhat of a redemption for Dan Simmons after I DNF'd Carrion Comfort early in the year, so I was a little scared to pick it up, even though my expectations were high, but he certainly delivered. This is the first book in his Seasons of Horror series. I do plan on continuing with the other 3. Not sure when I'll get to it. Hopefully I can get to at least one of them in the fall. So going on from there, speaking of horror, a book that I picked up was Swan Song by Robert McCammon. Now, this book was amazing. It's a post-apocalyptic epic, often compared to The Stand, and it's an apt comparison. There are a lot of similarities between the two books, although I think Swan Song definitely has its own voice. And a lot of the issues that I had in The Stand, I think McCammon definitely remedied in Swan Song. This book was fast-paced, it was focused, it had a lot of POVs, but it didn't really get away from itself like The Stand does. Phenomenal. I gave this 5 stars. I do want to thank Jimmy from the Fantasy Network for really pushing me to pick this book up when I did. Thank you, Jimmy. You were absolutely right. So happy I read it. And this is one of the books that are really making me think McCammon might be a new favorite author for me. I reread Boy's Life, I think in January. Another 5-star read. Incredible. So coming off the back of Swan Song, I was so impressed with this book, I went right into another McCammon and I picked up They Thirst. Now, another absolute great book from him. Does everything I liked about Boy's Life and Swan Song, but in a completely different light. I mean, this is more classic horror. This is a take on the vampire story. This is like Salem's Lot or Carrion Comfort, which I mentioned before, which I was disappointed with. This did it perfectly. This story follows vampires that take over the city of Los Angeles. And if you're unaware, I live in Los Angeles, so it was really cool for me to see something in that setting. All the landmarks and streets and all the little cities that I'm familiar with and I'm basically, spent every single day in. It was cool to see written in this story. I mean, there's a lot of horror books about like New York and a lot of other large cities in the United States, not so much Los Angeles. So that was really, really cool for me. So the last book I have in July, which I'm not quite done with, I'm almost there, is Tender is the Flesh. Now, this book was picked for me on the TBR wheel that I put out for you guys to choose. This was the winner. This book is bizarre. It's absolutely grotesque. So it's basically about meat is no longer accessible in the United States due to a virus. So society has decided to start manufacturing humans and breeding humans to eat. Yeah, you heard that right. It's basically about industrialized cannibalism. This story is so bizarre. It's got all the ick factor. It's definitely horrific. I'm about 40% through it right now, and I am enjoying it, although you want to make sure you don't have to read this before you go out to dinner or anything like that, because it's going to turn your stomach quick. But nonetheless, I'm happy I'm picking it up. So that's all my reads for July. Now let's briefly touch on what I'm going to be reading in August. Now, most of these are all going to be read-alongs on the Grimoire Discord, and then I'll have a few others that are kind of just, for me, mood read sort of things. The first one, and the one I'm the most excited about, is Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. We've had this read-along planned for a couple months now, and the time is here. So excited to read this. This is a classic of historical fiction. So much praise for this, so much hype for this book. I can't wait to get started. So I don't know a whole lot about the story other than I know it revolves around the construction of a cathedral, but I don't really want to know anything else. I want to go into this one completely blind and just let the story take me away. So looking forward to that. And now the next one I have going is Outer Dark, which I mentioned before, another McCarthy read-along. Now, we've had the same group of folks on the Discord, and we've been slowly making our way through all of his novels, and Outer Dark is the next one. Now, I have heard that this one is pretty bleak, and when McCarthy does a bleak, he goes all the way. So I think I'm up for it. I've gone through Blood Meridian and The Road, and I've definitely experienced that from him already, and nobody does it better. I mean, nobody does bleak better than McCarthy, so looking forward to that one as well. Next up, another read-along I have on the Grimoire Discord is Dead Man's Walk by Larry McMurtry. Now, I've been reading the Lonesome Dove Quartet. This is going to be the third book I've read. It's actually chronologically the first, but we've been doing it in publication order, and I am so excited. The first two books, Lonesome Dove and Streets of Loretto, I love so much. This series has high potential for being probably in my top 5 of all time if the next two books are on par with the others. Phenomenal storytelling, thought-provoking, but yet still grounded in a linear narrative that we're familiar with in the Old West. And it's just, I can gush about this forever. McCarthy's writing, not McCarthy, McMurtry, I always get those mixed up, is just such a phenomenal storyteller. And if you're unaware, Lonesome Dove is actually Stephen King's favorite novel of all time, and I'm a big King fan, so that obviously got me interested from the get-go, and I can see why. So that's it for read-alongs. The only other book that I plan on reading personally is going to be The Great and Secret Show by Clive Barker, my all-time favorite author. This is a book that I have not yet read from him, and I know it's considered one of his best. And I don't know why I waited so long to pick it up. I guess, I don't know. I don't have an excuse. I should have read this book years ago and just kept putting it on the back burner, and putting it on the back burner is the start of a series, an unfinished series. And if you're not familiar with Barker, he's had a lot of health problems over the years. And at this point, I don't think he's going to be able to write anymore. And the first 2 books of this trilogy have been completed. People have been waiting for the 3rd book for about 30 years now. So all you Winds of Winter and Doors of Stone fans, you know, people that are complaining about those, just keep in mind, 30 years. 30 years. But nonetheless, I, as a, you know, avid fan, I'm at least going to read the first 2, and hopefully that's enough to just, you know, scratch that itch for some Barker this month. But all in all, that's what I have. Excited about August, happy about what I read in July. If you want to come join us on the Discord, that would be fantastic. I mentioned a lot of the read-alongs. There's going to be other ones going, so jump on, join us. We're already up to, I think, 260 people as today, and it's growing quickly, so, you know, the more the merrier. Until next time, see ya.